Mayor Martin, may I see you one more time, please? Mayor Martin will welcome Congressman Randy Neugebauer.
Several years ago, when I first got involved in politics, I went and visited with a former city councilman named Randy Neugebauer. I was running for the seat to which he had held for many years, and then left to devote full time to developing the Ports to Plains Trade Corridor Coalition. He was replaced by Councilman then Mark McDougal, and I was running to fill the seat that Mark was running for when he ran for mayor. Since that time, Randy and I have become very, very good friends, and we have worked together on so many issues, particularly transportation. But every time I go to Washington, every time I go to his office, it is a pleasure because they roll out the red carpet, and it's amazing how he's able to cut through the bureaucracy in Washington and get things done. He, under the current Congress, he serves as the chair of a very important subcommittee on the Financial Services Committee. Many of you are aware that things that were passed by a Democrat-controlled Congress several years ago, called the Dodd-Frank bill, is creating havoc in our financial system. And Congressman Neugebauer has been leading the charge, at least in the House, to be able to make reforms in that legislation before it wrecks this economy. He serves on a number of other committees, most noticeably the Agriculture Committee, which is certainly important to this area of the country. We still are waiting, hopefully, to get an comprehensive ag bill, just like we're waiting to get a comprehensive transportation bill and many others. But there seems to be a block in the so-called upper house of Congress where you can't get anything done. But I know we get it done in the lower house of Congress, and I want to introduce the congressman for the 19th Congressional District of Texas, the Honorable Randy Neugebauer.
Good morning to everybody. I see there's some early risers here, and that's a good thing. You know, one of the things that people say, well, you know, what's a typical day like for you in Washington? And I said, well, you know, generally everybody thinks that members of Congress are just working half a day. And I said, that's exactly right. I'm working half a day, sun up to sun down. And so it's great to have you here. You know, I had a speech that I have been giving, and I was going to give that speech this morning. One, I'm not big on giving speeches, and so what I thought I'd do is just talk to the family a little bit here this morning. As I travel around the 19th district, literally travel around the country, yesterday was traveling, or day before yesterday, was traveling the district yesterday, and it was going through an airport on Thursday. And the number one question everywhere I go now is, can we beat Barack Obama?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Yes. Yes.
And I say, can we afford not to beat Barack Obama? And the answer to that question is absolutely not. Now, I will tell you that the Democrats are very fired up right now. They sense that they can take back the House and let Nancy Pelosi be the next Speaker of the House. They think they can keep the Senate, and they think they can keep the White House. And we cannot let that happen. I want to give you some numbers, though, to let you know that this is going to be a real fight, and we're all going to have to get engaged in this. When you go back and look at what happened in 2010, the Republicans got 63 net seats, and so we took over the House, and so that gave us a 25-seat margin. But here's an interesting number. 62 of those members only won by 55%. or less, and that was in an off-presidential year. They believe in a presidential year where they'll have Barack Obama on the ticket, that their turnout numbers will be a lot better and they have an opportunity to take back the House. One of the things that concerns me is that the DCCC is outraising the Republican Congressional Committee. We're catching up, but we cannot let that trend continue. And so I think I hear some people say, well, we know for sure we're going to keep the House. We shouldn't assume anything. We should be in a full armor, ready to go to battle mode. You know, I know that some people, I've heard them say, you know, well, I don't like this nominee, presidential nominee, I didn't like this presidential nominee, and some people are kind of discouraged or disenfranchised a little bit with our nominees. There is no perfect candidate out there. But let me tell you one thing. We know that any of those candidates is better than 4 more years of Barack Obama. So people say, well, Randy, what's at stake here? It's very simple. America. That's what's at stake. I believe this is the most important election in my lifetime. As I've witnessed what can happen under this administration over the last 4 years, the thought of 4 more years under this administration is very frightening, in fact. This administration is wrong on fiscal policy, it's wrong on constitutional issues, and it's certainly wrong on social issues. So that's a trifecta for them. They're wrong every corner of everything that they do. Now, I would tell you that the American family is under attack. I have been trying to make sure that the American people understand the severity of this issue, is trying to put this in an example that we all can understand. And what happens sometimes in Washington is people talk about a trillion this and a trillion that, and you know, and people have a hard time. I have a hard time getting around a number that's got 12 zeros behind it. But let me put it in perspective for you where we are today. Let's make America a little family, so let's take 8 zeros off of those numbers. And so what we have is a little family in America making $24,000 a year. But unfortunately this year, that little family is going to spend $37,000. So they're going to spend $13,000 more a year than they're making. Now they just got their credit card statement and they found out that they owe $156,000, $15.6 trillion. And they went to, is no surprise, they went to that freecreditscore.com website. You know that one? Yeah, they found out their FICO score had gone down. No surprise. And so if we were counseling that little family today, what kind of future would we say that little family had? A family that's making $24,000 a year, spending $37,000 a year, and is $156,000 in debt. Bankruptcy. Bingo. And all we have to do is kind of look across the pond and see what's happening to some of these other countries that have bought into this scheme. You cannot continue to sustain this. One of the things that I know I've done this maybe with this group, I know with some of you been in it, but I'm going to do this with you this morning because I do this everywhere I go. How many people in this room are living a bigger and more prosperous life than their parents and grandparents? How many people in this room think that your children and your grandchildren will live a bigger and more prosperous life if we continue to move in the direction that we're moving? One hand maybe. We cannot be the generation that used up all of the opportunity in America. We cannot be the generation that mortgaged the future of our children and our grandchildren. We have very difficult decisions that we're going to have to make to change the direction of this country. We can do that, but we're going to have men and women in elected office in every area, from Congress to president to state to local, people that want to take back America for the American people. One of the honors that I have in representing you is I have had an opportunity to travel to Iraq and Afghanistan and see our soldiers in action. And I'll tell you, it makes you proud to be an American. What a great bunch of men and women they are. And when I go to the theater, I say, you know, I want to eat every meal that I'm in the theater with the troops. And so when we do that, I put the officers over there at another table, and I sit there with the warfighters. And what we do is we thank them on your behalf for their distinguished service to our country. And more importantly, I want to hear make sure we're doing our part to furnish them the things that they need to do the job we've asked them to do. On one occasion in Iraq, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was sitting at a table, and first things I tell them, you can tell me everything that you want to tell me. It's non-attribution. I want to hear the truth. That's what I'm here for. The other thing I do is ask them to write down their names and their family member's name back home and a phone number. And the first thing I do when I land is I call that loved one and say, you know, guess who I had breakfast with or lunch with 24 hours ago. Well, you know, what a humbling experience to talk to those parents, those families. Let me just, as a sidebar here, you know, when you thank these men and women that are serving on our behalf, be sure and thank their families too, the husbands, the wives, the moms, the dads, because this is a team sport. It puts a lot of pressure on those people back home when we have our men and women deployed. But anyway, we were having lunch, and folks were going around, they were talking. Usually they get pretty open and candid. And sometimes, you know, some of the things they tell me are the things I want to hear and I need to hear. This little young Marine, probably 19, 20 years old, sitting at the back, sitting up straight as an arrow, fit and trim, chiseled face. He didn't say a word the whole lunch. So we got up and we took pictures like we normally do, and then gave them a challenge coin that I give them on your behalf, thanking them for their service, and then shake hands and depart. And so formed a little line to depart, shook hands, and the young Marine was the last one. Again, he didn't say a word the whole time. He walked up to me, straight as an arrow, stuck his hand out, his right hand out to shake my hand, but then he put his left hand on my shoulder. Now I'm in the grips of a Marine. Intimidating. He looked me right straight in the eye, and this is what he said. Congressman, you and I take the same oath to preserve, protect, defend this country against enemies, foreign and domestic. He said, you know what, I think we're doing a pretty good job with the foreign ones. He said, you boys in Washington need to buck up and take care of those domestic ones. It was cute, it was funny, but it was serious. And I re-pledged, as I pledged to you several years ago when you elected me to do this and pledged to him, every day I'd get up and fight for America against those domestic enemies. And those domestic enemies are these deficits and these regulations and all of those things that are strangling our economy, so that when that young Marine comes back home, he has something to come back home to. And I told him that my voting record would reflect my fight on his behalf, and I believe it has. A lot of people say, well, Randy, what are we going to do about this? Well, we're going to get engaged in the fight. As you know, in 2010, I got extremely engaged in making sure that I got more conservative friends to come and help me. It doesn't do any good for me to be one of the most conservative members of Congress if I don't have 217 more friends with me. So we started what we call the Pink Slip program. And what we set out to do is identify in these races all across the congressional races, all across the country, conservative men and women that wanted to come and preserve liberty, freedom, and economic opportunity for America. And we selected 66 of members, potential candidates, and we supported them. We raised or gave over $500,000 to these candidates. I'm proud to say that 49 of those candidates are members of Congress today, about a 74% rate. We knew some of those races were tough and it'd be a long shot, but we didn't want for our candidates to be underfunded or under-resourced, and so we wanted to make sure we are part of that. We're going to have to do that again. We're going to have to get engaged. We sent people to work in other districts. We had encouraged people to give money to some of these other races, and so as Republicans here in Lubbock, Texas, and all across the 19th Congressional District, we need to make sure that we get our good conservative Republicans elected, but then on the national level, we are going to have to make sure that we get involved, because as I said, the Dems are very ramped up, and we need to be equally ramped up ourselves. You see, Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid and Barack Obama are not good for America, and they don't need to be leading America. They don't need to be running this country. We had a little dose for 2 years of them running this country, and we saw what we got out of that. We got Obamacare. How many people were proud of that? We got Dodd-Frank. We've gotten an administration that's going to tell farm families that their kids can't work on farms in the neighborhood. We've got EPA telling us that they're going to enforce cap and trade because we can't get it passed in Congress. They are not good for America, and you and I are going to have to make sure that they are not in the leadership of this country in the future. They want to tax, spend, and borrow the future of this country away. Not on our watch. We cannot be the generation, as we said, that used up all of the opportunity in this country. You and I are going to have to be engaged. And I look around this room, and I see so many of you that have been working for conservative principles and causes for so many years. Many of you helped build the local Republican Party. Many of you helped build the state Republican Party, and many of you have been extremely involved on a national level. I wish I could tell you that the job is finished. It's complete. The job is not complete. It is not finished. We must continue to rally, even more than maybe we've ever done before. Sacrifice personally more than we've ever done, because the future of America is at stake. And one of the things that I thought about this morning is we all are great Ronald Reagan fans. And I know if Ronald Reagan were alive today, and he saw what was going on in this country, he'd be concerned. Because he knew, even when he was president, that freedom and liberty and opportunity has to be fought for every day. In the spirit of Ronald Reagan, let's keep that fight going. Let's go out and do something really big for the Gipper and for America and for our children and our grandchildren, because we deserve it and they deserve it. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.